Welcome to WKGP on Blue Sky Gallery, Blue Sky Gallery's Zoom call. This will be recorded for later on YouTube, so if you missed a piece of it, you can find it. I just wanted to say, thank you for being here. Blue Sky I'll let you, Amanda, would you please explain what Blue Sky Gallery is for the people really quickly?
Blue Sky Gallery is a nonprofit photo-based art gallery based in Portland, and we have an open free call for submissions. It's ongoing for photo-based art, so check out the submissions page on our website for those artists out there who want an actual on-the-walls gallery show. And we offer actually multiple opportunities for artists to exhibit their work and other resources and artist programming like this one, thanks to Kris, who's one of our board members. So it's really wonderful. Thank you, Kris, and thank you to the participants of this panel. We appreciate it. I'm excited to learn more about this.
Me too, because I don't know much at all. So I'm really interested in the learning. So on the call today, we have Justin Aversano, who we'll be speaking to first. He is an artist, and he's an artist based in Los Angeles. He also runs the Savearcspace, which we'll talk about. Is that correct? Savearcspace is the name, yeah?
Savearcspace.
Yeah, there it is on the shirt. And so we'll speak about a little bit about both of those things, being an artist and running a nonprofit organization. It is nonprofit, right? I'm not wrong.
501c3 public art organization.
Gotcha, cool. And we also have Ashley Ramos, hopefully Ramos or Ramos, I don't know, one of them.
Either or works, yeah, okay. Either works.
And Duncan Cock Foster from Nifty Gateway, which is would you explain what it is?
I would say it's an online NFT marketplace. Yeah, I should probably have a better pitch than that, but you put me on the spot. Online NFT marketplace.
I think that works. So first we're going to speak to Justin about his project named Twin Flames, and I will pull up, I think I have access, access. And Justin, please take it away. Let the people know what you're doing or what this project is.
So my name is Justin Aversano. I'm a photographer. I shoot with film 4x5 and 6x6. I use a twin lens reflex camera. And I started this project in 2017 after at a gallery exhibition, I saw twins come to my gallery show, and I was shooting Polaroids at the time, and I shoot Polaroids in the art world, and I photographed them, and later that night I saw it, and I was like, I need to do a twin project, because I was a twin, and I lost my twin in the womb. My mother had a miscarriage before, during, and after me, so I felt like it was my duty as an artist to pay homage to my twin and take on this healing journey around the world. To photograph other twins and build community through the creative process. And I treat it like it was an alchemist journey where, I had the healing in my heart at the entire time, but I felt like I needed to travel the world, create art, build community, meet twins, and discover that relationship that I have lost through my loss. So, once it came full circle back to when I exhibited in 2019 at Super Chief, I felt and created this book, Twin Flames. I felt like I had resolved, the pain and trauma I've experienced, like that prenatal connection that was severed at birth. And now I could finally feel whole in my life by creating and building and just showing up for these twins and showing the light and honor in the way I shoot my photography. Because in the history of photography, with Diane Arbus, she photographed twins in a light where it was very dark and also like weird and freaks, quote unquote. So I wanted to shift the paradigm of what twins represent in the canon of art history and make them actually mythological heroes, because twins actually represent luck, fortune, and connection. And I wanted to establish that in the art history through my photography as well as my healing journey. And, through this project, and if you look at the photos of the exhibition, half of the twins who were living in New York showed up, and it was like a twin ball. And it was such a surreal experience because the energy of the twins was just encapsulating. So, and then that was the exhibition. 2 years later, here we are now, and NFTs are suddenly occurring upon us.
Wait. Before you go into this part, I just want to ask you just a few questions about like, so this project is pretty extensive. I mean, how you made 100 photographs for this series?
Yes, I was shooting with my 4x5 and my medium format camera, and I made C prints in the dark room, and I'm very analog. So going into the NFT world with my analog experience was kind of contrary to the whole idea of what photography is and where it can live. But I thought it was a great, way to be discovered and also use it as a tool, because as an artist, I'm seeing, the platform as a tool rather than a platform, which is interesting. The blockchain, all these things that are currently coming at us so fast within the past month. I was led on with these tech experts who literally held my hand on Zoom, showing me how to make a MetaMask, showing me how to use OpenSea, or look at Nifty Gateway and look at these platforms to put my artwork on. And I was blessed to have someone to literally hold my hand and show me how to do it. And I minted my artwork, and it was listed for sale. I paid my first gas fee, and suddenly I sold out this project that I've been working on for the past 4 years. And I was working on selling it to one collector for 2 years because I couldn't break up the collection. The collection lives as one, and I just didn't have the heart to literally sell them individually with the physical pieces. Yeah. So I was stuck, looking for an institution that would place this work in at like a museum, or a collector who would purchase the whole set. So now that NFTs came, I let go of this obsession of it has to be one set sold together, and I could actually break apart individually these images as NFTs. And because I'm the first NFT photographer of this caliber to bring my artwork onto this platform, because that platform is much used to digital artists, video artists, and GIFs, a lot of artists are intimidated, but I wasn't. I saw this as a tool. I persevered. I placed my artwork, my photography, my analog work on the platform, and I was blessed enough to have CryptoPunk collectors see my work.
All right, you're going too far, because most of the people don't know.
Sorry, I'm just so passionate, and this story just pours out of me.
We'll get into all that, like the crypto stuff, in a moment. But I just wanted to explain, like, you've been doing this project for a long time. Where did you make all this work? Like, did you travel around a lot?
Yes. I started in New York, and every twin photo led to the next twin, because twins know twins. And it was a lot of word of mouth and a lot of suggestions. And I started in New York, and then I went to Los Angeles, and then I went to Peru to meet my twin shamans, who I do, peyote with and go on shamanic journeys. And then I went to London to finish the project, and I photographed the shining twins from the project. I have some notable twins in the series, and it took me pretty much around the world, in the Western sense, to create and build community all over the planet with the twins, and creating a whole oeuvre of portraits of human beings, and the magic of emotion, and the simple prosperity of the person in a portrait, and just being themselves. And that's what I wanted to show, is them in themselves, showing they chose the location, they chose what to wear, they chose their pose. I just showed up and captured them in a way that honors them, because I believe in honor and love and community, and that's what my photographs represent, and that's what I try to convey through the work I do with personal photography and Savearcspace, because Savearcspace, and I'll get to that in a bit, but it's really community driven, and that's what I try to represent through my art.
Gotcha. And can you explain what Savearcspace is and what it's been doing in the past few years?
So we started Savearcspace in 2015, and we were actually combating gentrification, because we noticed in our neighborhood of Bushwick, for Bushwick Open Studios, Travis and I, my business partner, wanted to have a component to the festival that was public art, to make art accessible to everyone, not just the art world, not just people who are patrons, but actually essential workers, kids, people who are on their way to work. Like, this is important to me, is to make art accessible to everyone, especially in the community, and at the same time combating advertising, because they were taking the place of murals. And we thought it was our duty as community members to place the art back over the ads that took over the art in the first place, hence the name Savearcspace. And 6 years in, we've been hosting exhibitions in local communities all over America, and now we're having our first exhibition in London in May. So, and now we're having 5 shows a month in different cities. For instance, we're having a show in Colorado with CPAC as the curators, and for the month of photography, they chose 10 photographers. So we have a lot of shows literally going up this month, and it's just burgeoning out to the whole world.
Awesome. I mean, thanks for giving us that information about your space. I think people should check it out. It's savearcspace.org, correct?
Savearcspace.org. We're a billboard public art organization that literally transforms billboards into public art. And the whole idea around Save Art Space is to shift the perception and paradigm of consumerism to community. Because at a time like this, during a pandemic, we should be focusing on community and not selling ourselves or anything else for that matter, but to build with each other as human beings. And that's what Save Art Space does. And we encourage, the little guys, the artists, to have faith in their path as a career choice, because art is a career and it's not a hobby. And we want to give that light and, support to artists who don't believe in themselves, and maybe seeing their work on a billboard will help them gain confidence to pursue their career at the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean, it's really powerful. It can be very, very powerful. And and thanks for letting us show all of your works. I mean, it's kind of incredible it's very difficult to get through 100 photographs at once in the first place, but like pretty incredible that you've been able to do this work and make such. It would take me a long time to make 100 portraits that looked good. I mean,
it took me 2 years, like 2 years, twins. It comes in 2, but I really want to get, before you finish my photographs, I want to get to the point where it's like the NFT really saved me and allowed me to be abundant with the work I've created, and it actually put me in debt. And now I'm in a place just in the past week where the work sold out within 5 days because there's no other photography like it that existed. And that's why at the same time, I wanted to bring you, Kris, onto the platform, because I saw the abundance and I saw that it was my duty as an artist to another artist to help you be aboard this ship and bring the abundance to you, because I'm not in this alone and I don't want to be alone. I want to bring this to my people, to my community. And that's why I've been spending the past 3 weeks literally Zooming with people, onboarding them into the metaverse.
You built like an entire community, and it's pretty incredible. So if you want people to be connected to your community, can you just write it in the chat, like how to get in touch with you, while we'll like start to get into asking questions. And thank you for showing. I mean, thanks for letting me show the work, by the way. I think that we've now looked at 100 photographs. Congratulations, everybody. And thank you very much. So Duncan and Ashley, yes, hello. My screen is all weird. Welcome to tonight. I just wanted to ask you what you run an organization or a company, or I guess a company. Is it a company, or is it yes, a company named Nifty Gateway? And I just wanted to ask you, like, what is Nifty Gateway?
Sure. Thanks, Kris. Also, Justin, I was just looking at your series on OpenSea. It's very nice. Maybe you should post a link, because I see there's some listed for sale. I kind of want to collect.
Resold right now, but I sold out the series. Some are being resold, but I did sell out the series initially.
I should clarify. It sold out, and now it looks like some people have posted it for resale, which is a very common thing in the NFT. I think more common in the NFT space than in the physical art world. But it looks really beautiful, and as a twin, I think it's like very powerful. But Nifty Gateway is a platform for artists to sell their artwork in the form of NFTs, which are blockchain-based digital tokens. That sounds really complicated. I actually think that there's a very simple explanation, which is just that NFTs are a way for people to collect digital artwork, or artwork that exists like purely as a digital file, such as the photographs in this scenario. So a lot of the artists we work with have never really had a platform to sell their art before. They're digital artists, and a lot of them have pretty big followings, on Instagram or on social media, but they don't really have a place to sell their digital artwork. And I think NFTs and Nifty Gateway is one platform that does this, have really let people sell their digital art for the first time. And that's my like very high level overview.
Gotcha. And when did you start this this company? Is it just you that runs this, or how?
So the company is actually quite large now. I started it with my identical twin. So lots of twin talk tonight, which is great. I love that. Yeah, I started with my identical twin, and then actually, believe it or not, the company was acquired by another set of identical twins. So again, just like a ridiculous amount of twin talk. But we started it in 2018. NFTs have been around for a while, since about 2017 was really the first like earliest use cases of NFTs. And I got sort of into the concept back then. But back then it was really, really difficult for people to buy them and for people to actually collect, because they're based on blockchain technology, and blockchain technology is really, really confusing for people to use. Mm-hmm. Our idea was basically that this was a really cool technology with transformative potential, but because it was hard to access, it wasn't going to live up to its transformative potential. So the whole idea behind Nifty Gateway is that we make it really easy for people to collect NFTs. If you want to buy an NFT on Nifty Gateway, all you have to do is sign up with an email address and a password, and then put in your credit card and hit buy. Basically the same experience as buying something on Amazon or like shopping for anything else online. And that was really our idea from the beginning. Because yeah.
No, please go on.
Yeah, I was going to say, because the other way to buy NFTs is with getting a crypto wallet and then putting cryptocurrency into that wallet and then like interacting directly with the blockchain. And it's just a very difficult experience for people, especially people who have never done it before. If you're familiar with blockchain and crypto, it's not that hard, but if you're a totally new user, then it's very difficult.
I mean, it will take you some hours to kind of figure it out and how to do everything. But once you know it, you know it. It's not a hard thing. It's just a kind of tedious start.
Right.
But does it act the same? I mean, you're making it easier for people, but in the back end, is it doing the same thing?
Correct. It's the exact same thing. So you're buying an NFT, a blockchain token, but basically the additional work we've done makes it so you can just purchase that with a credit card as opposed to purchasing it with cryptocurrency. And
are you the only site that uses credit card? Because it seems like it's rare that you don't have to get into the kind of the wallet having thing, you know?
Yeah, we're not the only site that Maker's Place also lets you spend a credit card. The reason that it's rare is it's really hard to build a user experience around just using a credit card, because NFTs have to be like other crypto assets, they have to be stored somewhere. So if you have your own wallet, you can store them on your own wallet. But on Nifty Gateway, they're all stored in our sort of like Nifty Gateway service, which just makes it far easier to sell them. But you're right, it is rare. And I think it would probably be more accessible if credit cards were more common.
Yeah, I mean, that would bring a lot of people to the space, I bet. If there was like credit cards on everybody's site, then a lot more interest, a lot easier to handle. So how have you seen the growth of the company like in the last year? I mean, it seems like things are blowing up. I'm hearing about it in like the news and everywhere online. So I'm wondering if you're seeing that in the back end.
Oh yeah, 100%. As I speak, like every week we're seeing like a record amount of visitors to the site. And I believe OpenSea as well. I know the OpenSea people well, and we talk about this kind of thing. I think everybody is seeing sort of like a record number of visitors. Wow. And for us, it's honestly difficult to keep the website functioning normally, because when we built it, we really didn't expect this amount of interest or demand, or at least we expected it to happen far later, but it's all just happening very, very quickly.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. I mean, there is this value to it that I see that, I see it as a value for museums, for artists in the middle of places that we've never even dreamed of going to, and like that everyone being able to have this kind of space online to have their own space online, pretty much. I mean, that's what I see it as.
Absolutely. And some of our most successful, like top selling artists, they actually live sort of like in the middle of nowhere. I guess in the past, it seems like you have to move, maybe you had to move to New York City if you wanted to make it with like the really big galleries. But our like some of our most successful artists are distributed literally all over the world,
Mhm.
which is like very cool to see.
It's a different demographic for sure, and like it covers a lot more. And that's really. Have you ever heard of what artist is from a place that you just couldn't even imagine someone having access to the Nifty Gateway?
There's one artist from rural Indonesia, and he's actually incredibly popular. No, actually, sorry, scratch that. There's an artist from Nigeria, and he makes all of his digital art using Microsoft Word because that's what he has access to. Like he doesn't have access to these fancy, sophisticated 3D animation software, but he's very popular and people really like his work. And it's a pretty amazing, yeah.
Yeah, and that's a whole thing about value, right? I mean, is your site fully auction, or it's not fully an auction site, is it?
That's correct. We do like releases in a few different formats. So sometimes we'll have auctions. Sometimes we'll have editioned works where it's an open edition and anyone can buy for a period of 5 minutes. Like you show up and you can buy for a period of 5 minutes, but then after that 5 minutes, no more editions will be minted. So yeah, we do like all types of different release formats.
Wow, that's a different way. I don't think that it's interesting because the internet allows you to do all these like different ways of kind of creating sales for art. It's pretty incredible. I noticed on all the gift, like we're speaking to a photography heavy crowd, like a university photography crowd, and we don't see much of the work that we're used to on the sites yet, right? I'm sure that it's going to happen, but I'm wondering, are you seeing in the back end that there are people that are getting into it from the like established like art community, art world, like museum based kind of peoples?
Honestly, I think we have seen a few, but it's sort of been like a trickle rather than a flood. I think the whole concept of NFTs is just so new that so many people are just learning about it for the first time. And in the coming months, we'll see a lot more sort of like institutional people get interested in the concept.
Yeah. I've seen it start at this point, like slowly it's been coming in, but I've seen some emerging blue chip artists like Lucien Smith and Robert Nava who have reached out to me, and it's really at this point for a lot of people it's about the education, just trying to understand and better equip themselves before making decisions. But we respect that, right? We want people who are mindful and take the time to do their due diligence before entering the space.
Yeah, and so what we want to do now is go back to kind of the basic idea. I think that we definitely need to talk about like, what is this? What does this mean? Like, what is the basic idea behind this? Like, what is a blockchain? If you could mention that for like a minute, like what does that mean to be on a blockchain?
Totally. And honestly, guys, I should say for the whole audience listening, I've been doing this for like 3 years, and just explaining the basic idea has honestly been one of the hardest parts about starting the company. So if you're confused or if you feel lost, that's very normal. And honestly, like 90% of people I encounter when they first hear about NFTs, like they feel a similar confusion. But basically what an NFT is just essentially a record of ownership for a work of digital art. It's basically like a digital certificate of authenticity. So if I'm a digital artist and I make a digital artwork that just exists as a computer file, and I can't really sell it the traditional way because I could just like copy that computer file as many times as I wanted. I could like Control-C, Control-V, and create 100 different copies of the computer file. And if I sent it to someone, then they could do the same thing. So the whole idea behind NFTs is to say, okay, maybe the computer file can be copied as many times as you want, but instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to go make 10 blockchain tokens, and those 10 will serve as like records of ownership and authenticity. And then whoever owns that blockchain token, they're now the owner of this digital artwork. Anyone can copy the computer file, but unless you own this blockchain token, then you don't own the artwork. And that's essentially that's more or less the idea. It sounds really crazy. And I think people are really shocked to see that it actually works. But again, like that's sort of getting into the details. At a high level, it's basically just a way to collect digital art. I mean, it's no different than like buying a print, except you're buying a blockchain token instead of an actual physical like print.
Yeah. To Duncan's point, and I think for me, I crossed the same barrier that a lot of people in this room might be crossing. I came from a traditional art background before Duncan and Griffin had hired me. And I was one of the first producer hires over at Nifty Gateway. And I think they wanted, because the way that Nifty Gateway is set up is it's a very handheld experience for the artists that choose to, that have the ability to be on site, and similar to what a gallerist, or I would say more so like a studio manager might do for you, like hold your hand throughout the process, keep you on task, and make sure that the deliverables are done for the gallerist on time. That's really what a producer does within the NFT space. But I'm going to just point out some of the key things that really stuck out to me as a difference between the traditional art world and the NFT space. In the traditional art world, unless you're a blue chip artist, what you're seeing is a traditional gallery split when you want to go to an institution or like a platform to sell your work. Outside of being independent. That is, if you are accepted by the gallery, ends up being a 50-50 split. And for a place that states that they're there to support, advocate, and help you, that number right there just doesn't make sense for me, right? And it's not really conducive for the growth of the artist, right? It's labeled as a partnership, but in the NFT space, you're seeing these numbers are far more fair. The artist actually takes the largest majority of the profits, as it very well should be, right? And that's something that hasn't been rectified in the art space. And then there's also the matter of the secondary market sale, right? You have the opportunity to gain a revenue for every secondary market sale of your artwork thereafter. Traditionally in the art world, if you give a piece to an art gallery and they sell it, any sales that happen after that point between the collector and whomever they choose to sell to, the artist reaps no profit from that. It's same with the auction house structure. The artists reap no profit of those secondary market sales. And those are just things that have been the way of nature for many, many years. And it's kind of hard to break out of that. And it's all the way at the auction level and the high blue chip gallery level. So it's hard to take steps backward from that. Whereas in the NFT space, it was governed off of the principles where these things have been solved for from the beginning. So, the artist is really the spotlight in this. And then, another aspect that I think is quite interesting is that you can go directly to market. You don't need a third party. So if you're a musician, you don't need a record label. If you're an artist, you don't need a gallery. And that's a beautiful thing.
It's definitely going to change the way the world works. I mean, I can see it especially for music, and people that make video art are going to be really big on this. I mean, I can imagine some of the biggest video artists coming in here and saying like, I'm going to sell 1,000 of my seminal piece. And that is going to be big. Those are going to be big moments. There's going to be movies that are released on here. There's already somebody's album's coming out next week or something on it already. They're like using it for I don't know if you guys know about this. Like, it was announced today that I forgot the name of the band.
Leon.
Kings of Leon making an NFT record. So yeah, whatever, but it's happening. Kings of Leon. So we have a lot of questions about their energy use of Ethereum blockchain, I think. And I'm just wondering, I don't know anything about that. I don't know how much energy is used to make this stuff happen. Do you guys have any idea about like that piece? Because I know that Ethereum is what you are not running Ethereum. You are completely separate, but using it as a system of payment or a system of ledger. So you're not actually liable for the Ethereum problems, I don't think. But what do you think about this energy use?
Right. Well, it helps to like break down a little bit like how the blockchain works. Basically, like blockchains are like decentralized computing systems, so they're spread all over the world, and they work through a process called like proof of work mining, which essentially does involve like you set up a bunch of different computers which require a lot of electricity, and you you more or less have them solve math problems, and that process, like someone around the world has to be running that process in order for the blockchain to work. But like an artist like Justin or on Nifty Gateway, minting a token on the blockchain doesn't actually consume any additional energy. It's the system is already running, and you're just like taking advantage of it basically. So the analogy I like to use here is it's sort of like a subway. The subway is running from stop to stop. Minting an NFT is sort of like getting on the subway. You get on it and you ride one stop to the next. But if you don't get on the subway at all, the amount of energy is still exactly the same. Like you getting on doesn't actually cause it to use any additional energy. And then additionally, the whole Ethereum blockchain, it's like nobody in the community is a big fan of the way it works right now. So the whole thing is in the process of transforming from this old method of working, proof of work, to a new method called proof of stake. And the new method will essentially, reduce the energy use by 99.9%. So that's what I'll say about like the energy consumption of NFTs and of blockchains more generally. I should also add that overall, the NFTs are a very, very small percentage of the Ethereum blockchain. Most of the Ethereum blockchain is used for like financial applications. I think like it's about 0.8% of the Ethereum blockchain is used for NFTs. So yeah, is that information helpful?
I mean, for me, it was helpful to kind of hear what you're feeling about it and what you think, like what it is. And I mean, I'm just looking at the chat, and it's like,
yeah. I mean, we're aware of just how much of an issue it is, and rightfully so, right? The earth is the only reason that we are all here, and being respectful of it is an important factor in any practice. I think that we see consumption at high levels in many different industries, and of course, to point out that is happening in ours is important, and we have a responsibility to that, and we are trying to internally solve for how we can, be better in our practice around it. And I also just want to point out, in my experience in the art world, I've exhibited at a lot of international art fairs, and I would love a study to be done about how much gas is burnt in the shipping of art from an art gallery in New York down to Hong Kong or Switzerland, then splitting up a collection from each gallery that would be exhibiting at an art fair, which would be anywhere from 200 to 350, and saying that they bring a full body collection of about 15 pieces of art to be crated. So we're taking into account the crates. And then once a collector purchases a piece of art at these global art fairs, and then they get shipped to either New Mexico or Switzerland or wherever in the world, the art world has certainly played a part in it. And to point out who's playing a bigger part is, then it becomes like, who's pointing fingers? I think for me, especially with my sister, she's an environmental conservationist and she works for the municipality of Denmark. It's a big practice within my family. And I think it starts in the home, right? And how we are conscientious as human beings about our consumption and our own individual footprint. But
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Please go on.
No, I'm just saying, when these issues come up, we always want to point a finger, but whenever you point a finger, there's always, 4 fingers pointing back at you. So for me, my practice is like, how am I contributing to the issue? How can I solve for it? How can I make it better? At Nifty Gateway, that's the approach that we're taking, and we are.
And I think that, for a lot of people, it doesn't matter how much energy it uses to make art, right? Like, I mean, some people it doesn't matter, some people it will. So it's just about asking, like, if you are concerned with how much energy it takes to make this stuff happen, and it is the truth that it takes the energy to make it happen, then at least now I know, and I don't have to choose to be part of that system. That's how I see it, right? Like, for me, it's like, okay, it does use a lot of energy, and I get that. I'm still trying to figure out where that energy is coming in. Is it me uploading? Is it is it things being sold? Like, where is the energy use? I'm just using the internet here, and where's the energy use is in the blockchain, but I just don't understand why it takes the energy to do these things. But I don't know. We could talk all night about this, I believe. I mean, I don't. Let me just. Sorry, go on.
I was gonna say, like, yeah, I think in the Ethereum community, everyone agrees that like the current implementation is inefficient, and that's why like the proof of stake transition is happening, and I think we're all really excited for that.
Cool. So I'm gonna open
quick before we start asking questions. I just want to say, as an artist perspective, why your work should be on the blockchain, because I am reading some of these comments and there are a lot of questions. But before we open up, I think it's important to point out that the reason I use NFT and I still shoot photography and I still give prints, because you have the choice to have it only as an NFT or have a physical thing and sell them differently or sell them together. So that's something I'm starting to see. And Kris, you and I had a conversation of what is the right thing? How does the secondary market, get the print? And I think the primary person gets it. And I think being an artist and the reason to be on the blockchain is 3 simple things. And this is why I do it. And this is just a testament of what I'm experiencing through my recent success. 1, Ashley said it perfectly, the royalties to the artists that we haven't seen ever before. And I think that's so important because as Basquiat experienced, when his work sold for over 200 million, his estate didn't see the resales. He didn't get any royalties, just the collector did. So I think that's important. Exactly. It's a revolutionary thing for artists to be sustainable, and it's efficient because it's built into the smart contract. Number 2, and I love this, seeing the lifeline of the artwork exist on the blockchain. You scroll down on any of my photos, you'll see like created by Justin. This guy made an offer. This guy made a bid. This one sent it to that one. It's just like you're seeing this in real time and it's logged for the rest of eternity as long as there's an internet. And I think, wow, when have we ever seen or been able to have a ledger of the activity of some sort of, what's going on with the artwork, and it's living on through so many people. And I think that's amazing. Like it's royalties, it's transparency. The blockchain is super transparent. At the same time, it's anonymous if you're a buyer. So it's kind of funny in that way. And most importantly to me, the third reason is accessibility to a new generation of wealth that the traditional art world is very much not used to, because in the traditional art world where we come from is pockets of small communities with wealth that pretty much dictate what happens in the art world, where we're seeing now in the crypto community when people who are our generation or Gen X literally bought Bitcoin and Ethereum at 10 cents and now it's worth $2,000, $50,000. There's basically an unlimited supply of money. And, there's people in the crypto community who wants to support artists and buy art at barely an expense to them, where in the art world, it's like pulling teeth. So I think the accessibility to abundance of wealth that's happening in crypto is nothing you should ignore. And yes, there's a whole thing about what about the soul of the art? Is money just taking over? I think we shouldn't think about money at all. I think we should think about the resources that we've tapped into, and just forget about this conversation of money and art. Just keep creating art, and the money will come. It's just a whole different scale of wealth.
It's a creative tool. So what I want to do now is kind of, there's a ton of questions, and we're going to please turn on your videos and ask the questions you have. There's been so many questions coming in that it's impossible for me to actually read them all, because I want you to like speak it in your own voices. So if you'd please jump onto the gallery view, if you would, and like, let's really have this conversation and just talk about like, I can't claim to know everything or so much, but I think that with all of us here, we can probably maybe have like a conversation about this. So if one person would just ask a question first, maybe we can get it rolling. But
oh my God,
we have the worst camera.
We're so misty.
I have the worst camera.
Muting needs to happen.
I could ask a question just about how it all begins. I mean, if you have a piece of art, you have to make a decision whether you want it digital or physical. Is that right?
I think that you can do whatever you want with your physical copy. This is about the actual digital image that you have on the specific blockchain website you use to.
And then you set the price.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And if it trades, it trades. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yep.
Okay.
We actually see a fair number of artists who have released they release a physical work and then they'll release an NFT that's like based off the physical work. It's a pretty common practice.
Yeah, Christine.
I have 100 questions, but some of them I put in the chat, but now I'm wondering, like, who is buying this and why? So when I think about wanting to experience art, and God knows after this year, I really want to get away from my screen. Like, I'm tired of looking at things on my screen. So like, it doesn't completely compute to me why I'd want to spend $10 or $30,000 on some like JPEG. But what is the real reason people are buying and trading these things? Because like if an 8-bit little crypto kitty, you know, that isn't particularly artful at all, like sells for $1 million, and that's on the same platform as your beautiful photographs, Justin. Like, I wonder what's really happening on the backside. And I do get like, make the money, get the money. I get that. But like, what is it really? Who's buying this and why?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Oh, sorry. You go first, Duncan.
Okay, cool. I mean, I have relationships with quite a lot of the collectors on Nifty Gateway, and I've actually seen the funny part is like a lot of people that I know sort of from my, like before I started Nifty Gateway, a lot of them have actually become collectors and are now like texting me asking like, yo, what do you think of this artist? Like what, you know, like what do you think about this particular work? So really I would say like there's like a large variety of reasons for people to buy it. As far as display, I mean, I personally have 3 screens up in my house. They're actually right next to the physical art that I own. It's kind of a really cool way to show off your collection. One of the coolest parts is when people come over, like I have about 210 NFTs on Nifty Gateway. When people come over, I can just cycle between them and show off a selection. Like I don't have to take something off the wall and hang up something new. I can just change the artwork I'm displaying just by clicking a button, which is like and then also I think it's kind of a cool like visual creative medium. Like a lot of people are doing really, really exciting stuff visually, creatively. You know, some of these pieces make great use of audio, which you can't really do audio with a painting or a sculpture. So this is really like an emergent creative medium, and people are doing some really exciting, interesting things that, you know, that are not possible in the artistic mediums that existed prior to NFTs.
Can I ask a follow-up? I appreciate that response, and I know that like in the art world in general, it's been this unregulated art. It's been an unregulated money market for a very long time, and there's a lot of arguments for this being an unregulated money market that profits the artist more than it ever has. But isn't that what we're really talking about? I mean,
what do you mean? What do you mean?
Well, we're buying JPEGs, right? Or GIFs or little 8-bit thing, you know, like we're buying little things that we can put on a screen. And then as we sell them, they accumulate more value. We're just creating,
I think it's hard to call a piece. I would just to be mindful to the artists that dedicate their lives to this practice. I think it would be hard to sum up digital art as a JPEG or a GIF.
Fair.
You know?
I just mean like in terms of what you purchase, like but besides the blockchain that sits behind it, like the thing that you get, and that's not to that is not to not appreciate the value of the work behind it, but the thing that you get might be a JPEG or a GIF or, you know, like whatever, and then it has this blockchain behind it. But I mean, aren't we just like making money?
No. And you know what? I think this is a great question. And I love this kind of candor because I think it's important that we have all of these like challenging questions and that we address them and we speak openly. But that's like to say, why would you go to an exhibition if you can't take anything home? Does everything need to have like a physical value that is tangible to you to touch, or can things be experiential? Is art not at one level experiential? So yes, the takeaway might be a JPEG, and in traditional standards, it might be a painting, but I've paid countless times to go to pavilions and to different exhibitions just for the experience. So I would challenge you to maybe look at it more from the experiential standpoint, because I think that's what's really beautiful about it, personally.
Yeah, I will also say that I mean, as with physical art, like different people collect for different reasons. And it's really honestly another really cool aspect of this is a lot of the discussion, like you can see collectors talking to each other. That's just happening online. Like you can go on, there's like a pretty large community of crypto art on Twitter. You can go see people talking about stuff they love, stuff they want to collect, stuff they want to hold forever. So yeah, I think people do have, I mean, just the same thing, the same way with any collectibles, like different people have different reasons for collecting it.
One final question, I promise, is the last one. What is the average amount of time someone keeps something that they buy?
We don't actually have information on that. But again, that really depends on the collector.
Does it move really quickly?
It
It
really
seems like it
depends on the-
must. If you're making the money, it means like
I don't think people do it to actually make money, though. I think that I have two things that I bought and I'm not going to sell. So it's like, I think that it could go slow, or it could be like, I want to make more money on this. I think there's a difference between like maybe like me trying to buy something because I have this kind of mentality of keeping. I'm not trying to resell. So that's just, you bring to this what you bring to this, I think is what I think is that photography is in need of something different that like Instagram won't give us, because that's all we have. I mean, not really all we have, but like Instagram seems to be the place where everyone's going to show their new work, and it's not the place. And I think that maybe there's another place for that. Maybe it's 50 cents for an image that you can keep on your computer. Maybe it's $0. You don't have to charge money here. You can make things free. So like, if you want to do that and have people get your JPEGs that way so that they can, I don't know. I mean, I think it's really open, and we can do with it what we want at this point because it's so early. That's kind of how I feel about it.
So on that note too, just for the argument's sake of, you know, how fast do people flip things? Like if you go look at Basquiat, watch his documentary, his friends literally bought a piece, literally 10 seconds later flipped it. So it doesn't matter if it's on the blockchain, NFT, or in reality, people have the behavior sense of, I'm going to make money on this, or I'm going to keep this for the rest of my life and pass it on to my children. It translates the same. It's not like because of the NFTs, people are flipping shit faster. Yes, there are a lot more financiers and crypto, you know, hedge fund people, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's what's the active behavior. People want art, just like I collected Kris's work, he collected mine. I'm not trying to resell that. I'm trying to keep that for the metaverse, for my digital display. And I just said in the chat, like, you got to think of it, the art world needs to think of it like it's not a JPEG, it's a certified 101, just like when you go to a gallery and there's a painting on the wall. This is the only one that exists. I'm going to take this home. It's at my house. So when you look at it in the digital world, I'm in Nifty Gateway right now. Look, this is Nifty Gateway. There's the 101. I bought it. Everyone knows it's mine on the blockchain. It literally says it. Go to any of my photos, you see who owns it. That's what it means to mint an object, and that's what ownership is. Yeah. And it might be confusing to have as a JPEG, but it's really the object, the digital object that you own in real time, and you could have in your crypto wallet. That's all.
I could also say that
I have a question. So with we were talking about galleries and ownership, but what about, like, does this mean that if this is the future, are museums or galleries going to be, how are they going to get in on the action? Is art going to be just totally like going from ownership, individual ownership to individual ownership? And how does that pan out, making it more democratic?
Well, I think that there's something here that can help an artist, meaning like if I can make enough money to keep creating art because you supported me with $1 for a photograph or something like that, and I can get, instead of the 20, like maybe hundreds of people I know, 50,000 people around the world to give me $1 for art, then now I can have a living and make that art. That's how I see this, kind of like, not as a get rich scheme. It's like, will 1,000 people in the world actually support me so I don't have to suffer for my whole life to try to make the art I want to make? That's how I see this. Like, I see this as like a democratization for myself. I don't know. I mean, some people will see it opposite. Like, I want to go in here and make artwork and sell it for $15,000 and like sell as many as I can. But I think it's more like, I want a stable kind of future. This is pretty much like Patreon for photographers. I mean, I think that they're, you know, this is the new Kickstarter. It could be. I mean, it is not now, but I'm saying like, this is a place where we can say like, I would like to sell you my next book. I will give you a physical copy, but you have to buy it through the blockchain at $14. And if you buy it, then I'll ship it to you for free. And then if 200 people buy it, I can pay for my book to be made. I mean, this is how I'm seeing it. You can do whatever you want with this process because it's open.
I'm wondering, I have a question about once you get started. Inspired by Kris and Justin, I posted a portfolio of work on OpenSea. It's not printing money. I'll tell you that straight up. I haven't sold a single thing and I'm fine with that. However, I am wondering what additional work needs to go into marketing whatever you mint to collectors and people who are, you know, on these kind of vast networks looking at stuff. How do I connect with them, popularize what I've posted, create buzz, all that kind of marketing stuff that we still have to do in the physical art world? I want to dispel this notion that you put stuff up and then suddenly it's just like trading and selling and you're printing money. I know Kris and Justin have had tremendous success. I know I will have that too, but it's not like flipping a switch and you're like minting.
You really have a community behind you. It's not like I'm gonna mint my shit and it's gonna get sold out. I literally had to do the work you do in real life and find my crypto collectors and tell them my story and get them to support me. It's not like I listed it and sold out. I had to do all the work. I had to be on Twitter. I had to be on Discord. I had to be on Clubhouse. I had to promote myself just like you were in the real world and find your niche audience, find your collectors. And there's a lot of people on Twitter, and that's where I found my base. Because
That would be my recommendation as well. Is like, the one cool part about this community is that it is like so online. So you can find them just on social media, on Twitter, on Discord. And that's honestly how a lot of the crypto artists like got started, just by doing that. Or they just built up their following on Instagram first, and then they transition that into selling their crypto art. That I've seen that strategy be really successful.
Duncan, are you seeing more success on Twitter? Because I feel like there's more of the art world on Instagram and more of the crypto art collectors on Twitter. And what do you think about that? Am I wrong about saying that there's more non-crypto collectors on Instagram? Because that's what I've just been experiencing.
I honestly think it's sort of like a historical coincidence where the crypto art world grew out of like the Ethereum community and kind of the crypto community. And that community was almost 100% on Twitter and almost 0% on Instagram. And so like basically by that historical coincidence, the crypto art community also grew up mostly on Twitter. Twitter is still like our Nifty Gateway's primary social channel, but I think a lot more activity is happening on Instagram now as more and more people learn about NFTs. But definitely in the early days, Twitter was almost like the only place where people were talking about crypto art.
Before Duncan and Ashley, you've been here for like an hour. Thank you very much for staying with us. We're going to continue this conversation just because I think it's really important for us to do that as like our little photo community here. You're welcome to stay and hear what we have to say, but I know that you've given up so much of your time and you're busy and your business is growing. Congratulations. And we hope to have some like, we would love to have you back at some point whenever you find enough time for us again. And thank you very much for being here. And we didn't get to even half the questions, and I think that we're just going to talk it out a little bit more. But yeah, do whatever you need to do.
Chris, I got a question.
Thank you, guys.
You have a question?
Yeah, I have a technical question. I'm really hoping Duncan I can answer because for some background, I'm both a photographer and a software engineer, so I have some background. I've studied the technologies that back this stuff. So one question I have is that Ethereum, so the blockchain on which these Nifties are based, is subject to what's called a 51% attack, where malicious actors can arbitrarily add transactions of their choice to the blockchain by momentarily controlling a simple majority of the total hashing power. So last year, this happened 3 times in a single month. So as an artist, how can I assure collectors that the Nifties that they pay me for will actually remain in their control?
I mean, I think honestly that's something you probably shouldn't worry too much about, because yes, NFTs are based on the Ethereum blockchain, but the motivation there are other assets that are worth far more money on the Ethereum blockchain. So a hacker like going after the Ethereum blockchain is going to try and steal one of the cryptocurrencies that are worth billions of dollars and are far easier to sell. They're probably not going to try and steal an artwork when there's a much more valuable target sitting there. So
I respect that answer, but as a software engineer, I have to say that that security by obscurity is no security at all. I have a second question that's also technically based, so I wanted to make sure that you were here to answer it. And that is, you talked about using proof of stake, Ethereum moving to proof of stake. Now, for some background for those who haven't been following the crypto community, proof of stake has been being talked about for 5 years, since basically the beginning of Ethereum. It's at this point, it's a running joke that hasn't happened yet. But my question is, assuming that proof of stake actually happens, there's various forms of proof of stake, I know that, but all of them depend on having the most of some sort of physical resource that requires capitalization. So my question is, how do we prevent Nifties based on proof of stake from further entrenching the same power dynamics of speculation that distort and harm the art market as it is now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I guess my perspective on that would be, the technologies underlying this are sort of just like neutral base layer protocols. I don't know if the proof of stake algorithm will have that much of an impact on the actual art market itself. It's a necessary component for this to exist, but it's sort of just like a background layer, kind of like the same way that like all these protocols exist to make the internet function. But when it comes to making sure that information is good on the internet, that's like a totally separate problem. I guess that would be my perspective.
Nelson?
Yeah. Everyone's been talking about this.
By the way, like if you really need to go, I understand Duncan and Ashley, you need to go, but Nelson, please.
Yeah. Well, everybody's been talking about this as a capitalist venture almost, and I was wondering if Ashley or Duncan or anybody could actually talk about this more as the experiential venture. Talk about how it's shared out into the greater world, besides the act of collecting, besides the act of just sort of obtaining these things. Because I think that would be really interesting. You talked about the museum, but to be honest, no experience anybody's been talking about collecting NFT has been actually, I think, sort of apples to apples with the experience of going to a museum.
Mm-hmm. Well, what's your question though?
Well, I guess it's mainly, it's not just a question, but just if you can talk about it more as an experiential venture rather than sort of a capitalist venture.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's honestly a great question. Yeah, I think one of the coolest parts about this, it's actually sort of a reverse of one of the most common criticisms, where what we hear all the time is, oh, I can just screenshot and download this art. Like, why would I pay for the NFT? I actually think that's kind of the most amazing part about this, as opposed to the least amazing, where in the physical art world, if a private collector owns a work of art, well, good luck seeing it. It's totally up to you, or it's totally up to the collector who owns it. So physical art is sort of by nature this like contained experience, whereas NFTs, it doesn't matter who owns the NFT, anyone can see the actual work of art, which I think will contribute to this being like a far more experiential endeavor overall. Honestly, I think as far as museums go and physical showcases of NFTs, we're still just really early. I mean, Nifty Gateway itself is less than a year old. We're scrambling to keep the website going as more and more people are visiting us. I think once this is once people are more familiar with this concept, and once it's a little bit more mainstream, then we'll start to see an explosion of creativity around consumption, experience, display, museums, etc. So yeah, I think the space is just a little bit premature, but that stuff is all going to come in the near future.
And I would add to that, like, as a publisher, for me, I see it like not everyone can afford to buy my $24 book even. So to be able to even have someone support me in seeing the full project as full, like, spread JPEGs from a whole book for $10, $12. And if somebody wants to pay to have that experience on their big flat screen at home, which they own, then I'm willing to give it to them. And that's kind of how I see it, as coming in from the publishing angle. It's just a new platform. It doesn't take over the platforms that already exist to me, but it's something else that can be put into the world so that people can actually experience this artwork.
Yeah. Also, Sydney, to your point about the experiential part, I think just thinking about the metaverse as a whole and what that opens you up to. I mean, there's Samyam space that if you have a VR headset, you can go into a virtual gallery. Now, this makes things accessible for people who are in wheelchairs or might not have the typical traditional accessibility that others do. So it's a really inclusive community and experience when it comes to the whole metaverse, because you're telling maybe children who can't walk or in a hospital, are terminally sick, that they can put on a pair of VR glasses and enter a world where they can go to exhibitions, they can meet some of their favorite artists. And that's a really beautiful thing. And those are the takeaways that I choose to look at.
I just wanted to piggyback on some issues that people brought up recently about, Kris, you mentioned too, about like Patreon, Kickstarter. So in seeing what NFTs can do in this space, because inherently the value of physical photographs are tied to the commodity market and the speculation on that. So with using the technology of NFTs, I kind of see like this could be a gateway into solving that peer-to-peer, that patron system, where photographs haven't been able to infiltrate things like Kickstarter and Patreon because the value is so inherently tied to owning that object. But for photographers to enter into this space, do you see that for there to be a real crossover, they're going to have to come up with ideas built into their drops, their mints, their projects that kind of open up this space to new ideas?
Well, yes, but I think every artist has to. I mean, again, it's the fundamental rules of the art world are not different in that you definitely still have to go out and market yourself and try and acquire a collector base. The ways that you do that are different, but definitely, yeah, there's still a requirement of like figuring out how to get people excited about your work, figuring out how to like, explain yourself in a compelling way. I honestly think the biggest difference is just the fact that they exist online, and the ease of collecting is far simpler. Like I'm actually looking at Justin's work right now and considering buying a piece. I can just do that like straight from my laptop. It's just a far more accessible way to like actually perform the act of collecting the people whose works I like. I kind of think that's the key difference here is the ease of use.
Christine?
I really have another question. I love all this. I think it's fascinating, but here's the question I have. Okay, Justin, do you, in addition to selling these NFTs, can I see your work like on a website or on Instagram, or is there any other way to see these pictures?
Yeah, website on justinaversano.com/twinflames or Justin Aversano at
this elsewhere.
Yeah, it's everywhere. Just search my name and Twin Flames. You'll see it. Vogue Italia, Hypebeat, all these places.
That's awesome. All right. So then I come back to this experience question or the question of like, I mean, I guess people collect for all different reasons, but if I can see your work as a JPEG or whatever, like an online file on your website, I can download it onto my computer. I can put it onto my computer on my screen. Okay, now why do I buy the work? I'm getting to like the crux of like the actual thing. Like,
I will tell you why. Yes, just like Duncan said earlier, because a collector could buy it and hide it, it's beautiful. It's not a JPEG. You can't think of it as a JPEG. It's on the blockchain. It's minted.
No, I know. I'm talking about this question that Nelson brought up, which is one of experience. So I'm more than talking about like the capital. I'm much more interested in thinking about why we want to be in the presence of well-made things, like why humanity has always needed that. Why we as artists need to produce it, and why a good number of people in the world need to be in the presence of well-made things. Like, I love the democratization of this. I love that it helps us make money. It may sound like I'm against it. I'm not. I think I'm trying to get to the crux of like the experience of it, and versus why people participate in NFTs, because I do think it comes down to capital, because you can experience in the exact same way without buying it.
But what if you were Frank Viola?
Well, what do you mean?
I mean, what if you're a video artist that can't sell photographs? I mean, what if you just exist in museums once every 3 years?
No, and I mean, don't get me wrong. I think this is brilliant for musicians, people whose like complete like potential to make income has been brought to the lowest level ever by streaming and people sharing MP3s or whatever. For music, this makes perfect sense to me. I don't totally get this for photography yet. I don't.
I can share why. Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I don't, I think that there's a way that this does work. And I think that maybe it's not right for some photography. Maybe something else. Maybe this is a new art form for photographers to figure out, or like, it's not perfect, but I do think that it gives.
And I'm asking these questions with a super open mind and heart. Like, I actually am like really interested, Justin, if I can see your pictures on your website, or I can buy them as an NFT. Now, obviously as an NFT, I know you're getting some money, and that may be like something I want to do, but as someone who just wants to experience work in the best way possible, why?
Well, if this might help, I think one way to think about this is through the world of gaming, which my 12-year-old, 14-year-old son is really into. With those games, they buy things, digital things, whether it's skins or whatever else they sell in those games, that only exist on those platforms, and you cannot take outside of those platforms. However, they see great value in it, and judging by my credit card statement every month, they're purchasing them. He's purchasing them. So I think the amazing thing about NFTs, for example, is that for those people who want to experience these things digitally, they can buy my photograph as a skin, right? And take it with them digitally wherever they want to go. And that helped me understand, well, who is this appealing to? Why would anyone want this thing? Where's the value in it for them? Watching my son buy skins and buy tokens and swords and all this other stuff, it's like, okay, for a certain generation, this makes total sense.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. I think that's a really interesting way to think about it. It makes a little less sense when it gets to $30,000 or $1 million, because
in fact, I think it makes perfect sense there. If you keep in mind that you can still go out and buy that physical thing.
Yeah.
This doesn't preclude Justin or anybody else from making prints that show up in museums that collectors can buy.
Yeah, I think this is.
But you have this other thing on another platform in a different iteration that broadens your audience.
Yes.
Selling a print and selling a book, two different things.
Yeah, and that's a key takeaway here. I think so. It's like
sorry if I'm asking the remedial.
No, do not apologize for curiosity. Do not apologize for wanting to understand this better, and do not ever apologize for inquiring. We also, sorry?
That's like the most common question that we get, honestly. That same question of like, oh, if I can just download it or view it anywhere, like what exactly is the
because I'm an artist, and so I I mean, I want to make a living, but I could give a shit about the capital involved on an experiential level. Like, just because something makes a lot of money or is worth a lot of money does not mean it's good art to me. And it certainly doesn't mean I have a good experience. So for me, interacting with art is always about like, what's the best experience I can have in front of, like I said, a well-made thing. And if I can see that thing in two different ways, and one of them is free and one of them I have to buy, that's one part of the question. But I actually feel really enlightened by what Isaac said. I just wanted to sort of just reiterate my position, which has more to do with making art and experiencing art more than it does like the trading or the commodification of it. You know,
And I think for me,
what Nelson was saying too, a little bit, yeah.
On my end, it's like, man, can I find an amazing photographer that's working in the middle of Bangladesh that I would never be able to find before? Or like just some idea like that, like I'm able to open up in a different way because I'm gonna see some stuff that I've never seen before. And if we have photography on that chain, that means that we can start, you know, I can make books with people that I'd never have known that existed before. So for me, it's like building outreach. Did somebody say something?
It's another medium, I think, right? Like it's, you know, creatives, artisans typically are multifaceted. So it's not that you're just limited to photography. And that would be ridiculous for anyone to just limit you to photography. You could also be you could also paint, you could also be a sculptor, you could also express yourself in different medium forms. You could just look at this as an extension of a different medium that you can practice your artistry in. And it shouldn't compete nor compare with what you're currently in. So it would be hard, like if you're putting it next to the traditional art world, it's really hard to compare because they're totally different animals. But the way that I look at it is more for accessibility. In a museum, the artworks stay within that location, and whoever can access it physically by getting there, they can experience it. And that then narrows down how much accessibility that experiential aspect has. Versus this now adds permission for people from all over the world who may not feel comfortable in public spaces. I mean, there are people with different needs at all spectrums, and this allows for a large majority of them to experience art in a different way, which I think is a really unique takeaway.
It's going to be different for everybody, this thing. I mean, I feel like it's going to happen. At this point, there is going to be a lot of artists on the blockchain. This is not a conversation of, is this going to be something? This is going to be something, and it now is just going to be, do I want to be part of this or not? Whatever the problems are with the system, they may be worked out, they may be not worked out, but the system will happen. So it's just like, I don't know how to explain that differently, but like it's happening. This thing is happening, and I don't know. I feel like we should be some part of it. I mean, the photography world never gets the respect that we deserve in the first place. So why are we not going to take advantage of a new system of trying to make this work? If it's the carbon footprint, I don't know enough about how much energy is used to make this happen. And I have to do that research because that is important to me and I just don't know. So that's why we're having this conversation, because I'm novice. I am a novice for sure.
Yeah, and we're so caught up in kind of trying right now at the initial phases of understanding, like, is it okay for, like, how do we enter into this space? Like, is photography going to be valid in this space? But what we really should be talking about as photographers with each other is about the problems we can be solving in this space with this technology. And what I mean by that is, like, there's ways that we can kind of decentralize the funding for our future art projects. It's like a way for us to take ownership back of our digital products that we use on spaces like Instagram, where we're just fighting for views, where it's like now we can add a participatory value for anybody that wants to purchase our mints as to like what we're going to make in the future as photographers. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there for like the whole way we redo like self-funding and funding our future projects.
Yeah. Do you have like Marshall, would you please, and Julia, I hear you. So like, we'll get to your question in a moment.
Kris, I have to run. I'm sorry. Time for dinner. My girlfriend's been waiting. I don't want to make her
Okay,
wait.
Justin, Peace, man. Thanks for being here.
But, yo, I'm thankful for Ashley and Duncan and everyone on this call. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for asking difficult questions. This is why we're here to navigate the language, and bridge the communities really and educate, because we're here to educate. We want to answer questions.
Email Justin if you have any questions. He'll be answering them for the next month. And so yeah, thanks Justin for being here.
I'm doing consulting Zoom classes for tutorials, so I'll help you. Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you, Justin.
Have a great night, everybody. Thank you for being here.
But Marshall,
I have to run as well.
Yeah,
but my email is duncan@niftygateway.com if anyone has any follow-up questions. And thanks for inviting me. This was very.
It is just a question, Duncan. It's a technical question. It's just to help me out. I'm not going to ask about the energy. You've seen me blatting around on the chat already. It's a question. When you switch to point of POS, does the work that was sold on Ethereum stay on Ethereum, or does it switch over to POS?
The whole Ethereum network will transition. So that means everything that's on it right now will become backed by POS. So it'll be sort of a seamless transition, which is actually part of the reason why the change is so difficult, because they have to make it backwards compatible. But yeah, all the work will be fine. It will survive.
Is that the only question you have, Julia? Because I feel like you have some more questions to ask.
I do, except Duncan's been here for a long time, and I admire him for sticking around and reading all the chat. I hope, Duncan, you can really come up with a way of moving over to POS tomorrow, because and until then, my wish is that you actually shut down your business until that point, because at the moment I do find it obscene. My second question is to the people who are selling onto using this platform right now. Are you thinking of offsetting your carbon footprint from selling on this platform?
I think
the faster we get into this market, the faster we can transition to energy, web token, and self-powering grids, and then we can all be minting our new art books off of the generators that our community are selling back to each other.
You said that really fast, and I can you say it one more time?
My counter to that argument is that I think we could focus on the technologies that are being developed right now, as far as the way that solar energy is being translated into self-governing power grids, where the community is able to regulate and sell power to one another. I think that once we get closer to that model, that things like NFTs and just the whole space in general, like we're moving to a whole different energy sector as it is. So I just wanted to put that out there as just a quick counterpoint.
And I do agree with that, Marshall, but I think we're actually thinking probably 30 years time before we're all onto solar. So let's be a little bit reasonable and try and get the energy solved before we actually make the planet warmer than it already is. And my third question is, if an auction goes up for 5 minutes and it gets sold out, are we really truly selling art, or are we selling a commodity that can be bought and sold?
Well, it occurs to me that even with analog art, I mean, the practice of editioning work always seemed weird to me. I mean, you're creating value where it doesn't necessarily exist, and whether the artist decides to destroy their, I mean, like, it exists in the sense that the work is good and everything, but you're creating, you're limiting the quantities artificially, right? So it's not, I just don't think it's a new phenomenon linked to this digital format.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But thank you guys all very much.
Duncan, thank you so much for staying and like talking to us for like an hour and 20 minutes. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Ashley, for being here as well. We're just going to keep going, because why not? I mean, like, Amanda,